Oh, no, Rinpoche.
Hello, Dashile.
Tashidele. Tashidele. You shaved your head just now for Sakadawa.
Yeah, I shave every day.
Every day? Really?
Yeah, because I'm bald.
With a knife or with a buzz thing, a
With a
machine?
blade.
With a blade?
Yes,
Oh
yes,
my
with a shaving
God.
blade.
Yeah, that's very scary.
Uh,
But that's very brave of you.
it's okay.
My
You get
old
used to it.
Mongolian teacher, Geshe he used to do with a straight blade, not a safety blade, but a regular razor. He would just go
Okay.
like that. But as he got older, he nicked a few places. He would always, he used to do it by hand.
Okay.
It's so nice to see you. You're looking so happy.
Ah, that's. Thank you.
You're
Thank you
very
for.
cheery. Who is the guardian behind you? The
Oh,
Tata.
that's a Charupa. Music Charupa.
Who's that?
Charupa. Charupa. 6 arm Mahakala.
Ale, a former Mahakala.
Yeah, 6 arm Mahakala. Charupa.
Oh, I didn't see the other arms. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked a little skinnier, his legs, than usually. He,
Yeah.
he's looking a little, he's been on a diet.
Yeah, different posture.
That's great. That's really great. Well, I'm so happy to talk to you. I'm very sorry that the COVID, I just finished a retreat
Nice.
for 10 days. And I worked too much, so I'm a little tired.
Nice.
And I missed you. It would have been so great to have you. And but I know we all can't travel and everything. But I hope that sometime soon we can make a plan. Do you have a plan to come to the States at some point, or not yet, right? Because of the COVID.
I have a plan, probably end of summer or beginning of the winter around that time.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah,
well,
slowly.
can we try to make an event with you at the Menla?
Yes, I will be
And
very.
maybe one talk in the city at the like one evening talk there, and then like a weekend retreat or something at Menla. Can we do that?
Yes,
November or something or whatever time.
yes.
I would
Sounds
love to do that.
definitely. I will be happy to do that.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yes.
Are you having a nice time in Germany?
Yeah, it's okay. It's just
What's it like? What's it like in Germany? How is it?
I think it depends where you are. You know.
Really?
Yeah, it depends where you are. If you're just roaming in the forest, in the park, and engaging with the ordinary people, it's fine.
I
It's
see.
nice,
I
and
see.
people that you know. But then, if you're in some kind of a supermarket and some certain places, and then the attitude towards you is slightly different because you're a foreigner.
I see. Well, do you ever go to do you interact at all with yoga people?
Yoga people.
And they have yoga centers there in Berlin. Different
Okay.
of
No,
yoga.
I just started to engage with some ordinary people so far at the moment.
Oh, good.
People who are interested in Dharma, and then they have their own, how do I say, meditation center, meditation organization. So we just engage with them.
I see. What do you
Yeah.
what do you think of yoga people like hatha yoga teachers? Sort of they're kind of like Hindu oriented, right?
Mm.
They like Krishna. They like chanting, bhakti. What do you think about that?
I don't have any negative opinion, to be,
Oh, good.
but I think, when they do this kind of a hatha yoga, I think it would be nice if they could do it, if they could have the mindset as the Vajrayana yoga.
Yes. Oh, good. And then you love our Vajra yoga. We must
Yeah.
introduce you to that. I'd be very happy to share. I'll try to think of something to share with you that would explain at least what my idea is about Vajra yoga.
Mhm.
I would love that. I would love to have your collaboration with that.
Nice.
And do you do that stuff that they do, the Nyingmas do, where they do this Baba? You know how to do it?
No.
Really?
Yes. I entered 3 years retreat when I was 14 years old. Came out when I was
That's
18.
right.
So the yoga starts around the mid of second year.
I
So
see.
So you have to do
learn
it
that.
every day.
So when you jump up and cross your legs in the air and then fall down on your butt?
Yeah, I did it on my first
Really?
attempt. Yes.
Oh, that's really great. That's really tough. I never learned that. And lately I was trying to do with Dr. Nida. And it hurt my back right away. I'm too old.
Okay.
I think I'm a little too old. But that's wonderful. You know how to do that. So you are a Vajra Yoga teacher automatically. That's really great. Terrific. Really, really great. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And that's really nice. And well, this is fun, and the other thing, my motive in doing the Vajra Yoga, I came from the discovery. There's a guy in England whose name is Mallinson.
No, sir.
James Mallinson. He's some kind of lord, Sir James Mallinson, inherited,
Oh, okay.
He looks like a Hindu sadhu.
Okay.
He's the English lord, Sir James. I didn't physically meet him, but we exchanged emails. So his teacher was a very strict Sanskritist, a very good one, but he also had some, I think, wrong idea, but I never argued with him in public.
Okay.
And his idea was that Buddhist Tantra is just copying Shaivite, Shiva Tantra. And it all started by Shaivite because he had a teacher in Kashmir who was a strong Shaivite Tantrika, and Shiva Tantra. So somehow that teacher persuaded him that the Chakrasambhara, Demchok, is just copying Chakrasambhara, which in a way it is from our point of view,
No.
because of the legend of subduing the Jigje, right? The Kaidava, And so they're connecting with the whole network of the Shiva people.
No, that's not.
And you feel that at Mount Kailash, Rinpoche.
No.
So anyway, he had that there, but I never argued on purpose. I didn't want to argue with him.
Okay.
Because I thought the Western scholars of religion and things, if two Asian or Indian scholars have a big argument that becomes well known, and they say, oh, all those people who studied Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism and whatever it is, they always just fight all the time. They're terrible. They use that as an excuse. So I said, I'm not going to fight with him,
Okay.
And so I let him alone, and he works with one Lama Wangdu. Is there one Lama Wangdu from Nepal who goes to Oregon? Do you know about him?
No, I don't know.
I don't really know much either, but there's a Hindu Swami in Oregon who has a big place. And then there's one Lama from Nepal who goes and works with him. And they sort of do kind of their own bridge, but it's very much in the line. That's a professor. He retired. Anyway, his student had a book called the Amrta Siddhi, Dudzi Druba, which was from 16th century or something. And it had a lot of language of Shaivite Tantra. And so he thought this would be the great proof, the professor did, that Shaivite was everything. So he had the guy looking for earlier versions of that text.
Nice.
And then he found a 12th century, I think 12th or 13th, the earlier one. And to his horror, all the language was Vajrayana, Vajrasattva instead of Shiva. Everything was Vajrayana language. So then the student made a big announcement. He was going to publish and make a book about it. Then he went to see the teacher, and then suddenly it's been quiet. And I wrote him, and I said, look, we don't have to wait for you to write a book. Why don't you share the thing? We'll all write. You write your own book, of course, and we'll read it. But he wouldn't do it. He said, I'll wait till I write the book. He said, but then he hasn't written. So, but anyway, nevertheless, I know about it. He wrote it. He told what it is. So that helped. That made me think it's time to connect the two, and various people have tried to do so in the past. Because, a lot of people do yoga, right? And, but they didn't do a good job, Not yet, but so I don't think I did a good job yet either, but slowly I think we should do that. Because the yoga practitioners, a lot of them are just casual,
Okay.
They just do it for physical health. Or some guys do it to find dates, find girls.
I didn't know that.
They do.
Okay.
And a very superficial motive,
Oh,
But then others who have real spiritual interest,
okay.
and then they get confused about all the chakra, It's a Dai Kolo, Balung Tiglisum, and there's so many different versions about it, So it's interesting for them to have a more comprehensive perspective, something like that.
No.
Right?
Yeah, I think that individuals who are interested in any type of yoga, but especially the Nambe yoga, like the Niguma yoga. I mean, I can speak for the Niguma yoga. I think people need to spend time to have some sort of mental preparation, some sort of sharpness in their mind.
Oh, totally.
And then adding the yoga is not really an issue. If you don't have a mental preparation or some sort of foundation, and then they kind of go ahead with their own imagination, and then it goes off the track,
Right. Well, of course, you could do. I mean, if you think of Surya Namaskara, the one thing that they do in yoga centers, right? They bow, and then they do downward dog, and then they do a kind of push up.
Yeah, I've seen that one, some pictures.
But I think, for example, how would you handle that in relation to Ngondro? In Ngondro, you did 100,000 chatsawas, right? You did 100,000 full prostrations.
There's a two Ngondro. There's a general preliminary Ngondro, and then there's a Niguma Ngondro. So like the Niguma Ngondro, there's no Vajrasattva. There's a Tagje Aitongra. Aitongra means you don't visualize the Vajrasattva, but rather you visualize the and then you recite the and then you meditate with that. So that becomes like a purification. Yeah. And then there's a different Guru Yoga as well,
Yeah.
So
right. So you mean when you do 100,000 prostration, you don't think of it, you're making prostration to the Guru and the lineage?
No, we keep it very much to the Guru itself.
Guru itself, right. Okay.
Yes. Lama tang yedan pao kandu chujong soma tamjetin chikin jinmi.
Okay. Do you recite Lama Lajavsu Cho, etc.?
No.
Yes. When you do 100,000.
Yes. But just the purification stage is slightly different and unique in the Shangpa tradition because you don't visualize the Vajrasattva, you visualize the as the main visualization.
Oh, just the letter A.
Just the letter A, and then you recite the then you meditate.
I see.
Yeah, then you recite again like that a few times. So that's like a, how should I say, purification stage. And the mandala is same, and Guru Yoga is similar.
So the it's not the atum, it's a real You think of the whole letter A, right?
Yes.
Atum, not like Dumo atum.
Yeah, no, not like that. Just more like just a clear light and then you visualize that. Then you meditate.
And you do that while you're bowing?
No, that's while you're bowing is different, because Jamdro, tene shakpegi nyamnendra ode tene tagji ay tongrash. Tagji ay tongras and tene shakpegi nyamnendra. Yigja mixi kiteng mar. So we don't necessarily recite Vajrasattva. Instead, we recite
I see. Well, that's great. That's wonderful. Did you know that in Brahmanism, Hinduism, they think that the creates the universe. It's the Brahma sound. And when the universe is in Timsale, when it's what they call pralaya, dissolved, Because the consonants, the consonants have no vowels.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like atoms lying around. It's like consonants lying around with no sound. And then the comes, and then the short and then they pick up the consonants, and then the world emerges like mantra. They have the theory. The Hindus, they have theory like that. So is very primal, right?
Yes. So
that's very, very interesting.
Yes. So because like we do the ordinary yoga, like with the Vajrasato, mandala, prostration,
Right.
each 100,000. And
Right.
then after that, we add all the different deity practice with the fire pujas and everything, with the shamatha, vipassana, all of that. And
Right.
by the second year, then we do the niguma preliminary.
I see.
And then we
Only
do
in second year.
Sukha.
So you do
Excuse me?
100,000 mandala too, right? In the
Yeah, two
first
times.
year, 2 times, 200,000 mandala.
Yeah,
And
2 times.
100,000 Guru Yoga and 100,000 prostration.
Yes. So like during the second year, we do different preliminary.
Yes.
And then during the first year of retreat, we do that's like a very ordinary preliminary that everybody knows the text, the one that we always interact with.
I see. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So when you were doing prostration, how many prostration could you do in 10 minutes or something? How long?
I'm terrible with the prostration.
What?
I'm terrible with the prostration.
Really? You were not?
Oh, yes. I mean, I could do like 100 times, of prostration in 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. Or
100 times in 10 minutes?
Yeah,
Wow.
10, 15 minutes. But then again, you can't keep the pace,
6 seconds. So each one like 6 seconds.
Yes. But you can't keep the pace. That's the problem.
What?
You can't keep the pace.
Yes.
You can do it once, and then of course you get tired.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Then you kind of slow it down,
That's amazing. So how many could you do maximum in one day?
Maximum one day, I don't know. I don't remember it.
Really?
No, I
like
don't.
1,000? Could you do 10? If you 110 minutes. So if you could keep that pace in 100 minutes, that's less than 2 hours, you could do 1,000.
Yeah, but
I think you get too tired, right?
No. I'm really bad with the prostration. Other people are doing much better in the retreat. Yeah.
Well, in some of the biographies of the great masters, like Rinpoche and others, they say he did 1 million, like 3 million, 500,000, but you can't even imagine. Is there any way to abbreviate, like you don't get all the way up, is there any abbreviation method that people use? No. That would be
I think I've seen
fully up, fully down, fully up.
Yes, fully up, fully down.
No nonsense. No
nonsense in the middle. I've seen people who have done with a great dedication. Like when you go around the Bodhigaya Stupa, when you walk around and you see the lamas and the monks when they do prostration, you can see them in a very high pace.
Yeah.
And for a very long time. And even for the person like who have done the retreat, when you see people like that, wow, you admire that, you say, wow.
I know. Although I have a little doubt about Tsongkhapa.
Okay.
Because they say he did 100,000 to each of 35 Buddhas of Dungshat, of repentance,
Yes.
And but then the rest of his life, for the next 20 some years, he had terrible back pain. He had a lot of back trouble. He would get really bad back. So I think it's you can probably injure yourself if you do too much. I don't know. I can't. No one can believe he really did. But I saw, and I went to Ulka, to his Ulka Cholung on the Adegungyal Mountain, near Jingji, and I saw his retreat house, and the wood there was like, you could see footprint in the wood almost,
Yes.
Good. And then there was a stone where he offered mandala. Instead of a silver thing, it was a stone, and it had like, the blood was like soaked into the stone. It was like a brown color.
Wow.
Rubbing with the arm like that when doing the mandala, supposedly. Who knows? But it was very impressive. But anyway, I worry that he hurt his back.
Mm-hmm.
Do lamas sometimes excuse certain type of person with certain kind of body from full 100,000, or no? They insist on 100,000.
The retreat masters, and they always insist on 100,000. but then again, if you physically can't do it, and then you physically can't do it, you're not left out because of laziness, right?
I see. Was your retreat master very strict?
Not strict, but it was, it was not strict comparison to, a few hundred years ago, obviously.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Did he beat you? No, they didn't hit
No, not in the retreat.
You ever hit?
In the retreat, everybody is adult.
That's good. But in old days, they used to hit a lot.
That I have no idea.
I heard.
Oh, okay.
I heard.
But in
Dalai Lama feels guilty because he used to do that kind of training when he was little with his brother.
Oh, good.
But the gurus had the two whips. They had a real whip for the brother, and they had some little piece of cloth for him.
Yeah.
And then he used to be the naughty one who would provoke the brother, and they'd have fights, and then the brother would get hit more than him. And he was in tears when the brother died. He confessed. He felt really guilty.
Yeah, I think I received that speech many times. I think throughout the Facebook and in the real life also. He mentioned many times.
You did it all alone. You didn't have any other young lama with you doing it when you did
mean in the 3 years retreat?
Yeah, you had someone.
In the 3 years retreat, I was the youngest one.
You were the youngest one, and there were other people doing it. I see.
Yes.
Well, that's nice to have company.
Yes. We were like 18 of us. Each of us we have a
18?
meditation. Yes.
And where was that? In Sonada or where?
Yeah, nearby Sonada. Nearby Sonada. So we have this retreat center, and then we stayed in the meditation box.
I see.
So it was like 3 years and 9 months instead of 3 years and 3 months because we had to do Kala Chakra retreat.
We did.
Yeah. So we did.
Oh, great! Just the mind mandala.
Yes. Tungor. Yes. Lagu. Yes, 9 mandala, right?
Not the whole body is speech.
No, not the whole. But
you did
a lot of things to read.
Kala Chakra you gave the fitness retreat of Kala Chakra. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, just the basic, retreat of Kala Chakra, not the, not the whole Jodru, not the 6 yogi
what sadhana did you use in the Kala Chakra?
Tungor Lagu siniya choga nyamne chiduta nga jese. Tungor Lagu, the 9 mandala.
Okay.
The 9 mandala.
Okay, yes. Right. So you did. Was there a special Shangba version of Kala Chakra, or was basic same usual thing?
The same as the
Dalai Lama.
Dalai Lama. Same.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Do you like Kala Chakra?
Excuse me.
Like it?
Did I like it?
Yeah. I mean, some people like. I think mainly your retreat is. In Chicago, it's Demchok is a big deity, right?
Yes. In the Shangpa also Demcho.
What?
In the Shangpa lineage also is Demcho.
It's Demchok, right?
Yes.
So, which I love. I call Demchok super bliss machine. Demchok Kolodompa super bliss. That's what I call it. And I really like it too. But I'm just saying, so then compared to that, was Kala Chakra like secondary to you, or did you see it? How did you see it compared to Demchok?
Compared to Demchok, I still have more to learn about Kala Chakra. So because in the retreat you don't have so much to learn or study about Kala Chakra. Of course, you practice a little bit, obviously, for a few months, but you don't get the same priority or the information as much as the Chakra Sambhara practice.
Right, of course.
Because it's the end of the retreat, and then then the whole there's lots of practice that you have accumulated, and then you have to practice all of that every day. On the top of that, you do the 9 mandala. So then there's a lot of reading to do already.
They have the short forms, luckily, But well, I'm just curious because then in Shangpa, Kagyu, do you consider Kala Chakra Madhu, Mother Tantra?
In Shangpa, we don't have so much information about the Kala Chakra, even though that many of the Judilhanga, the 5 mandala, the 5 deity mandala practice, and then the Demcho Hanga, the 4 deities with the Dakinis and Chakra Sambhara, all these are mainly written by Taranatha,
Jonah, okay.
Yes. But we don't have so much information about Kala Chakra,
I
so
see.
much,
Right. So I mean, some teachers think that before Tsongkhapa's time, he refers. I forget who he referred to, but some of the masters considered Kala Chakra to be what they call non-dual tantra.
Oh, that's
neither. But Jada Rinpoche rejects that. He says it's a mother tantra in the family of Chakrasambhava and Hevajra, mother tantra, because the emphasis is on clear light. He said. So he doesn't like the category non-dual because he says all of the unexcelled yoga tantra are non-dual. Because all of them have gyulu and asal. So they're all non-dual, but the emphasis is the mother tantra is the asal. He says, and emphasis in Guru Samaja and Yamantaka is on gyulu. How to make the gyulu. I like it. I like the gyulu, but I don't like to call it illusion body. I call it magic body. I think it's more polite.
Okay.
Right? Because, the Hindus call Maya illusion only. But then Mayakara, Gyumaken means a magician. Right? And then magic, it seems more polite to me. Like Buddha's mother was Maya Devi, right?
Maya Devi.
Mrs. Illusion. You don't want to say Mrs. Oh, hello, Mrs. Illusion. You say, but Mrs. Magic, that's kind of magical. Then people like that. So I have such silly ideas. But that's really interesting. So interesting. I actually really like Kala Chakra. And I asked, I really have a fondness for it. Of course, I learn a lot through Guya Samaja and this and that, and I love Demchok. I don't have such a strong feeling about Hevajra. Do you do Hevajra too?
Yes, Hevajra. Like how to say, when we do the Judethanga means Kolo Demjo Sawandeba Mahamaya Geba Doji Jigji. So we do all the 5 deity practice.
Oh, great! Oh, yes, that's right. There's one for the Guntu. What is it called? The Maya Jala Guntu Jawa. That big thing. I saw that in the Dalai Lama book. You have a big focus on the Maya Jala, right?
No, you just simply focus on all the 5 deities.
Yeah, okay.
So we don't put any priority. We just practice the how do I say the 5 deities, all of them.
Right.
So we accumulate all the mantras.
That's great. So that's really great. And I literally I don't have much. I don't know much about. But the Maya Jala. There seem to be several versions of the Maya Jala Tantra. Because the Jambet Senje supposedly comes outside. It comes from the Maya Jala Tantra, supposedly. But then the version that you see they translated some sort of Maya Jala. Dzongzar Khenze did in his organization, but that's too short. It's a tiny little thing. So there must be a long one. But I haven't researched that at all. So maybe I won't next life. Maybe.
You are far more knowledgeable than me.
Right?
You are far more knowledgeable than me.
I really want to learn the Shangba thing because that idea, Niguma and Shangba, I like that. Also, Niguma doesn't use the Zhongjuk, right? Among her Nigu Neljo 6 yogas of Niguma, there's no Zhongjuk. There's there's Nilam dream yoga, but no body possessing yoga. It's a Zhongjuk yoga. Remember the story about Marpa, where the Dakinis told him he better not transmit the Zhongjuk, which you have in Naropa. Naro Chudrug Nalia. The Zhongjuk yoga, and me Shindagi Lu Nalia Droya.
I forgot. Yes. No.
Right. So Marpa did it anyway to his son. Remember, again, he broke the rules of the Dakini, and then that caused trouble to the son, right?
Yes. I remember that biography. Yes.
Right. And so, but Niguma doesn't use her 6 yogas have a dream yoga instead. They call it dream yoga, and they don't have the one of Lucien Ladroya, which is very good. I think.
Tumo Julu Melam Vesel Poa Pardo.
That's right. Right.
5 jewels of Niguma also there's
right. So that's really great. And did you do in the retreat, or have you practiced the Dzogchen thing, the Nyingma thing at all? Have you done that? Because
no, not really.
You haven't practiced that one.
No. We practice only the when it comes to the meditation, we only practice the Mahamudra coming from the Niguma and the Shampa masters throughout the lineage.
Right. So I like it. I don't like any kind of sectarian thing.
Yeah.
So I like to think that the top of the Dzogchen Rimba. So the upper part of Rimba has to be like the Dzogchen, I feel. So the Dzogchen and Rimba has to be very connected. But I haven't discovered, I thought you might know, I have a hard time figuring out, right, when you do this Dzogchen thing where they do this Rotra, Laming Rotrava, they point out the reality of the clear light.
Yes.
The one who receives that identification of the clear light in the Dzogchen, right? And all the Westerners love the Dzogchen. That's their favorite thing. But I have a problem in the sense that what do you do about the body?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if Tantra has to do with accelerating the evolution of the body toward a Buddha body, right? Instead of Bodhisattva's million lifetimes, you do it 1 lifetime or 3 lifetime or a few lifetime. So that's a huge acceleration of body. So where do they teach that in the Dzogchen? Because the Trekchö thing, what they call Trekchö, is really just pointing out the mind of clear light.
Oh, okay.
Right? So then the person is there with a mind and no body. But then they do the Ngondro. So then it must be that the Ngondro has to be filling in the gap with the body and bringing the body along. Right? The Suku, right? You have Choku and Suku. Right, and along Jojiku and Tuku. So how do you cultivate that in the Dzogchen? And I'm thinking maybe the Togel. After the Trekchö, then you do Togel, and the Togel business is developing some kind of subtle body, like a magic body practice. I'm hoping. I mean, I'm sure that must be the case. Don't you think so? But I don't know. I thought you might know. You don't know either.
I don't know.
Okay, good.
In Shampa Niguma practice, there's only one thing that is there's among many practice that is unique, but among the many practice, there's one last stage of the Niguma, 5 jewels of Niguma. We call it Debu Chimichume. Debu Chimichume, we simply visualize 2 clear light, two ball of radiant that is rotating slowly, and then they synchronize in the speed and rotation, and then finally they become one, and then there's a pure light, and then then you meditate in that state.
Okay. So then when you look in clear light, and then that's it, like in Chakchen. Chakchen is a little bit like that, where you go straight to clear light, right?
Yes.
The whole universe has clear light.
No.
And then the 5 lights, 5 colored lights are working, and you make the body out of that. Somehow you make the Suku out of that, right? Is that right? Something like that.
Something like that.
Well, but then in the Demchok, they have like the Shadanga, right? 6 branches. Shadanga Yoga, right? The Yala Duk.
Yes.
Don't you have Rimga like in Gwe Samaja, like 5 stages in Chakrasambhara?
Chakrasambhara
stage method.
What do you mean by like 5 stages, if you don't mind me?
Well, you have Luwen, Ngawen, Semwen, and then Yulu and Asel, and then Sungju. sort of, that's 6, but, because the Luen is sort of bridges over from Kedim, in the normal, in Grisamaja anyway. So, but then they also have, then in the Mother Tantra, it seems like they more use like 6 branches, say Yalak Group. Six, which is Sosot Duba, and then Samden, and then Anusmrti, what is it, Jesudemba, and finally Tingedzin. There's like 6 stages like that. I think they fit together somehow.
I mean, so far, so far as I remember, when we do the 5 deity practice, there's not so much of the visualization that we do, because we emphasize everything into the Niguma practice. So we keep the Chakrasambhara practice a little bit like, how do I say, as a primary deity, but the visualization, we keep it very simple.
I see, okay.
So we don't do all the, the detail of everything, like a Kala Chakra detail visualization. So what we do is that we visualize and meditate over the course of 6 months of Judul Hanga Tsodu Kinyamle. Tsodu Kinyamle, all of them, they're in the 2 arms, in terms of figure, of appearance.
But are you supposed to get the salnang of the visualization though?
Yeah, so like all the appearance of the deities, like an example, Sawandeba, Mahamaya, Geba Dorje, Yunden Kolo Demcho, Tine Dorje Jigje, all of them we visualize in the 2 arms, and that, we just focus on the syllable, radiant, and then the appearance, we just repeat that again and again.
Right.
So we just end our, 6 months of the retreat almost somewhere around that. So we don't go anything close to what you're explaining.
Well, I mean, exceptional person can do it in 6 months. Non-exceptional person can do it in 6 lifetimes. But I'm sure you're more exceptional. Okay, wait, I have to do this. I'm sorry.
Call from Menla.
My wife should pick that up. I can't answer. I'm
Call from Menla.
Oh, come on. I couldn't do it if she doesn't pick up. Okay, so 6 months, that's a long time, modern Americans, they want to do it in 6 hours.
Not possible. It is.
And, in Ngagrim Chemo, the chapters on the Kedim, development stage or creation, I like to call it creation stage, but other people use development stage. But in that, he said in his own time in Tibet, that a lot of people didn't want to do much Kedim. They wanted to get to the Dzogchen as soon as possible.
Okay.
But he makes quite an argument that you have to really make a strong effort. But of course, the Rinpoche, the jewel-like disciple, will go very quickly, of course. And simple and quickly, for sure. That's true.
Yeah, but in our retreat, we don't get any special treatment, Just because I have a name of Kalu Rinpoche, I don't get any special treatment. We practice everything equally, everything together.
Well, no, I know you don't. As a tulku, just by the name, the tulku. But the jewel-like disciple doesn't go by that. The jewel disciple means someone who automatically gets it, like in Lydia. Some person there was a guy called
kilometers far away from that.
Yeah. Tsutim Kap, they said he walked into the Kala Chakra mandala in the lineage of Kala Chakra. The Tsutim Kap, I think, of Serdingba, or somewhere like that. He just walked into the Kala Chakra mandala, the color particle mandala, and then he saw the wisdom mandala instantaneously, because of special past life, And I don't think he was necessarily tulku, but he just had the affinity, immediately he saw it, So I think that can happen, right?
Yeah.
And did you have some mystical experience like that yourself when you were doing what?
Okay.
You must have, but you don't have to say, of course, if you don't want to. But.
There's one mystical experience. There's other experience I had more intimate, that is with the Siksa Mahakala. That is the other chapter that I will explain to you slowly. But there's the one moment that when I was in the meditation box, that was the time, I think it was around the 3rd year, where I say I want to catch the dream,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then there was a moment that there was one moment that I fall asleep, and then I awaken from the state of the dream. There's a complete blackout after all the element that is dissolved, and then there's a complete blackout, and from the blackout state, and then there's a rising state of mind that you have a sense of awareness in the state of the dream. And in that very moment, and then I say to myself, I visualize in this very moment Chakra
Great.
Then I walk outside of my meditation box, and then I went to the courtyard, of the retreat center. Then I looked around, and I was looking at myself as a Chakra or the blue man.
Really? Oh, good. Then I said, special pattern in your limbs and everything. You felt like that.
I don't know, but I just
like that. Sure.
So then I said, okay, this is enough. So I go back now, and then I went back. Then I got up.
Did you have any remembrance of things from previous life, your previous Kalu when he came to America, or did you remember anything like that, or any people? No.
There was many stories, but not that I remember, and in this very moment.
Right.
Many stories when I was very young. There was pictures and videos and things like that, but not that I remember currently. So I don't want to repeat somebody else's story.
There's that Lobon Rinpoche. His name. What is it? Punlop Rinpoche. Punlop Rinpoche.
Yes, I've seen.
You know him probably personally.
Yes.
Well, I loved him when he was at the. I haven't seen him in a long time. But one time he was at the event arranged by Dzongzar Khyentse Rinpoche to start the 84,000 project. He had a conference at Beer, and where he invited me. So I went there. And then Punlop Rinpoche gave a talk. And he said that when you recognize as a tuku, it's very upsetting when you're a little kid, he said, because then somebody comes and tells you, the way he put it was, he said, people come and tell you that you're somebody who you're not.
Yeah.
He said, and that's a little distressing, he said, he claimed, he said it was like very upsetting. You think you're this little kid running around, and then people say, oh no, you're not him, you're somebody else. Put it like that. It was everybody laughed, I mean, it was like a joke, but it was quite sweet. I think he's a very nice person. I like him. Making a big fuss about it. He said, and but you haven't been in the States. Where did you see him? Oh, he goes back to India and here and there. Berlin. He travels in Europe. Does he also? Punlop Rinpoche. Does he travel in Europe?
No, I don't know so much about it. I've seen him in some Facebook and some YouTube.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. But he's very funny. I've always liked him a lot. I got along with him. Yeah. When the Karmapa Ugyentile came first time to America, he was arranging everything. Punlop Rinpoche was arranging.
Mm-hmm.
So then he and the young Karmapa, they asked me to introduce him in some big hotel with like hundreds of people.
Okay.
And to make introduction of him, they asked me in New York, at some big Chinese hotel.
Okay.
And then the Kaju people in there were looking all annoyed.
Oh, okay.
Because they said, what is this like Gelugpa person? They think of me. I never thought of myself as Gelugpa. I don't even like the name.
No, sir.
I like Gandemba. What I like is Gandemba, Maitreya, Gandemba. I never liked the Gelugpa. It sounds so prizzy. It's like a Protestant or something. I never liked it. Really, I don't like it. I like Gandemba, And but anyway, they think I'm Gelugpa. So they were like, some of them were sending me looking daggers, as we say in English. They were looking daggers. Why is he making introductions? And Punlop Rinpoche was enjoying that. He thought that was a lot of fun. And Karmapa Rinpoche, he was quite fine. And he also, I had met him in Tibet, when he was like 5 years old, I met him.
Yes.
And I went with a group of people, and some people in my group, I brought 10, 15 people. And we went to Tsurpu,
Yes.
And we had an audience. And they had brought a bunch of toys to give to him, when he was little. And then the Chinese police were there, and then they wouldn't let him play with the toys. And they wouldn't let him, the people couldn't hang out with him, like there's some women, you know, older women, like mother figure sort of thing. They wouldn't let them spend time together. And he looked quite upset about it. Even then, I noticed.
Yes,
Sometimes I went like that when he was there. And he did look it was a bit like prisoner.
yes,
Then I liked his dad. Did you ever meet his dad?
no.
But his dad showed up. Then we were put in some place to have our lunch. You know, we had packed lunch.
Yeah.
So we were having lunch in some guest room, you know, but without him. The Rinpoche wasn't allowed to go with us. But then his father came in. And his father had a big, giant Dalai Lama button
Okay.
on his chest, you know, kamba, you know, like I was almost scared. I thought we'll all get arrested. And then he said, hello, you know, he was very friendly. And then he said, I want to go to India. I said, so we said, okay, well, great. I hope you go. You know, I mean, we couldn't take it. He didn't want to go with us, but I mean, he was just saying he was going to go to India. And then I asked him, I said, he said, well, I want to see Dalai Lama's loud voice.
Yeah.
I was like so scared. But, you know, they weren't at that time, that was in 90s, I think, right? So they weren't, the Chinese were not being so aggressive at that minute, you know. But anyway, we didn't get arrested. But I don't know where they are now, his parents, but I hope they're okay. After he escaped, I asked him. He said they were in calm and it was okay, you know. But I met him after he escaped, right, in New Year's time. I asked him, what happened? Are your mom and dad okay? I hope they're okay someplace. And he said, oh, yeah, they're off in calm. You know. I think he purposely didn't want them nearby when he escaped, you know, far away. You know, so they couldn't be blamed. You know.
Yeah, true.
And I like him. He's really nice. I think you guys are a whole new generation.
Yes, sir.
And you're going to make a new kind of way of doing it. I hope so.
Yes.
I think so. It's really great. I heard that he doesn't like people doing too much bhakti. I heard that. Someone told me. You know, when some people like crawl on the floor, you know, even toward him, he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Which I think that's really good. I'm very happy about it.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, you know, by the way, do you have an assistant who schedules things and it works for you, like secretary?
No, not really. Not really that is with me like the traditional world, you know, like an example.
Okay.
In the traditional world, we had this idea of Changzi and Chongyi and all these things. I don't like that idea. I like to engage with the people who I appoint who really update month to month, week to week, you know, what is actually happening on the ground.
Yes. That's wonderful.
There's a less politics on power, basically.
No, I know. But if you start traveling a little bit, it's helpful to have someone who helps you out.
Yes. At that time, you know, it's just one of the Dharma Center lamas or one of the Dharma Center lamas in America. They just come over and then they will assist, you know, help me.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
During that journey or before that journey, they handle things.
Oh, good. So anyway, whenever that happens, please keep us in touch, you know.
Yes.
Really, I'm dying to have you come and spend some time with us.
Yes.
In September, I have a new course of Vajra Yoga.
No, sir.
But it starts again with Tegmen.
No, sir.
You know, reading the Jember Nero Shakvito and so forth.
Nice.
Jember Nero Shakvito, I like it a lot. It's really fun. Mahasati Patana. Because it says that nirvana's right in the samsara. It's all sorts of hints of non-dualism. You know, Nisumepa. There's so many hints in that. When you look at it from Mahayana point of view, or Vajrayana point of view even, you see so many hints in the Tegmen. But then the Tegmen are just still thinking they're going to leave the planet, you know.
No.
Go to nirvana somewhere else, you know. He's still thinking. But Buddha is clearly saying, no way. He does. Many hints, but they don't get. So that's some of them. So I insist that Vajra Yoga starts there. Then we put Mahayana second. That's in December. So I have a short retreat on Tegmen and then on Tegchen, and then next spring or something is again Tantra. But you could come anytime. Doesn't matter if you're here September. You could come and talk. It's a good group, like 100 and some yogis, and they're really trying to do some serious practice. And I'm not able to help them completely because I refuse to be guru. I'm not guru. I'm a Gewe Shenyan, friend.
Yes.
And the gurus, then they have to go get initiation from guru.
Yes,
well, I have another question for you.
Yes.
What do you think about the Shentong, Rangtong business?
I have no idea about it.
Yeah, no, come on.
No, I only read I read some teachings of previous Kalamji, and I just try to be content with that. And he said, in order to recognize the nature of the mind is, there's only a few, 3 sentences. He said, Maying, Migom, Semen. So Maying means no distraction, Migom means non-meditation, and then the third one is non-altering, and no opinion.
I'm sorry, I couldn't follow some of it.
Previous
there are 3 things.
3 things. Maying, Migom,
3 things.
Maying, no distraction. Maying ba. Semba maying ba.
Yeah, Mariba. Yeah. Right.
Marmar, semba maying ba chenise. Maying ba chenise.
No.
Semba maying ba ches. Then magoms, gom majabs. Uzu jan tinin chik.
No, sir.
Duality ge approach yorwa.
No.
Non-duality cheshus. Maying, migom, seme se duka subject matans.
No.
Because
Yes. But in philosophically, in philosophical side, I have a problem with the Shentong. But I also like to do like Deshu Rinpoche. He passed away before you were born, but you know who he was? A famous Sakyapa teacher in Seattle. He was many years living in America.
Yes.
And someone asked him what he think about it. He said, Shentong le Jiaozi Chou, Rangtong le Jiaozi Chou.
That's a very good answer.
I like that. I do. And so, the feeling that they get, I don't mind. And I kind of like, it's nice, the idea that, especially in relation to Kalachakra, visionary thing, I think the Dolbapa had wonderful visionary experience with the Kalachakra, where he felt that the mandala and the body of Kalachakra came straight out of clear light, So, you know what I mean? So then Shentong, he tried to fit that in the philosophically as a Shentong theory,
Okay.
And but I like the visionary part, but I think in the exoteric, in the rational theory, reasoning, it doesn't work too well. Because of the idea that the absolute or the Dandamba. Dandamba can't have qualities, It's Makieva, it's Dumache. That means that there's nothing, it doesn't possess properties. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Properties are in the relational level, Tanyepa, Tanyedamba. So and the sort of rational side, it's difficult. So I debate my Jonan friend about that. But on the Tantra side, on the visionary side, I accept and like it very much.
Okay.
And I feel that, in the Tsongkhapa liked Kalachakra very much.
No.
I don't know if you know that, but Rendawa was his Sakyapa teacher.
Yes, sir.
Someone called Jesu Rendawa. And Rendawa didn't like Kalachakra. He freaked out about it. Said, what is it, Dongsuk? Dongsuk, what does that mean? Tongpa has no suk, it's a sume. And he was freaking out about it. So, but Tsongkhapa defended it because he liked the visionary thing.
Okay.
So visionary, there's all this inexpressible, it's like, you have to hold 2 opposite things in mind, this kind of idea,
Yes,
and so that's fine on that level. But when you're thinking critically, like Tsema type of thing, then it can't work very well. It's a little, you have to really stretch it to make it work, because the Dandaba, the whole point of Dandaba is Dumache, Sabshi Dutta Dumache.
No.
So that's my attitude about it. But I wanna not be, too critical. I'm trying to be friend. Do you know Khentu Rinpoche? Did you ever meet him?
Kindu?
Khentu Rinpoche. He's some Jonangba guy.
Oh, okay.
He's a Jonangba Rime, he says. Very strong Rime. But he's also very strong Shentong, philosophically. So on the Shentong side, I have to debate. But on the Kalachakra side, I don't mind. I like to receive his teaching and on Kalachakra. I think the Jonang Kalachakra is very valuable and wonderful. I really like it. But on the philosophical side, I have problems.
Yeah.
So I hope that he will remain patient with me. He doesn't expect me to agree with him philosophically, and yet we can work on the Shenyan Tensu, Lama Guru, Lama Tensu, this kind of thing.
Yes.
By the way, one thing people call Lame Gyu,
Yes, sir.
they call Lame Gyu, they call it highest yoga tantra.
Yes.
Lame Neljo. So I don't like highest.
No, sir.
Because Lama means it's not really higher. It just means you can't get past it.
No.
Lana Mepa, you can't go higher than it, but it's not higher than anything else. It doesn't. I think highest is sort of snobby.
No.
In German, do you know that expression in German?
I
My wife is half German, but she won't teach me the language, so I'm not very good in German either.
Okay.
But they do have a wonderful expression,
yes,
which is called hochnäsig.
Hochnäsig?
Yeah.
Hochnäsig.
Nose
up
in the air, high nosed. Means sort of kind of very snobbish, like arrogant, like that, So hochnäsig, I think that's what. So I think when you call highest yoga tantra, people think that tantric yogi is hochnäsig.
No, sir.
Just too snobby.
No.
Whereas if it's an excel yoga tantra, then somehow there's nothing else better.
No.
But it's really not high. It's really the essence of everything that's already here. It's not somewhere else high up. It's right in the middle. So I like that. But I don't know. You don't have to agree. So anyway, I want to send you more books. Can I send you some more books?
Please. I'm still reading the last time what you sent to me.
Did you like that book on the Glenn Mullen? Is very nice. I like Glenn Mullen.
Yeah, I reached half already, so I'm just.
He's a funny guy. He's really funny.
Okay.
He's so funny. Glenn Mullen. Lama Glenn, he's called.
Okay.
He has a disciple in Korea.
No, sir.
He has very devoted Korean Buddhists who are learning about Tantra, who used to be Zen, Son.
No,
and
sir.
Koreans are very macho. Did you know the word macho?
Macho.
They're very macho.
Yeah.
And for example, I visited some Korean Son monasteries. They call Son. Zen, they call Son. And they were told me, look, if some Japanese Zen guy comes here after one day on retreat with us, he has to be taken off in an ambulance.
Okay.
Because they're so tough, they never sleep, and they're like that. Koreans are very tough in that way. They are. They're wild. They're really wild. So nice, Rinpoche, to meet you. You're going to have so much fun. You're going to have such a fun life, Oh yeah. What are you? How old are you again? You were 29.
I'm 30.
What?
30.
Just 30.
Yeah.
When was your birthday?
September 17, 1990.
September 19?
Yeah, September 17th in 1990.
September 17?
Yes.
Oh, that's so great. And you'll be 30 September 17th.
Yeah.
So I'm going to remember that. We have to give you a birthday party. If you come in September, it might still be, the virus in Europe might still be bad. But if you come in September, we'll have a big birthday party for you. No, we will. We'll have a birthday party. And even if you're in Germany, we'll have a birthday party. Like September 17th. That's wonderful.
Can I ask you one question? Because you're
Sure.
far more knowledgeable than me.
No.
No, please. But I have one question. Like about the Niguma yoga and Naropa yogas and all this, the yogas.
Yes.
Where does it really originated from? I mean, like, what really inspired them, you think? Because, of course, everything that I find is like, okay, this is a demonstration of Niguma and the Niguma yogas, and we just simply do that. And it has a very, positive and profound impact in my,
Yes.
my way of thinking about the Dharma and practice and so on and so forth. But I like to know the origin. Like an example, like when we talk about Charupa, when we talk about Charupa, it has an origin in 84,000 teachings of the Lord Buddha, right? So basically where it's originated from and how it has begun as a protector and so on and so forth.
Yes.
But with the Niguma yoga, or it's just a general the yoga of, like Kajupa have the Naru Chodro, Shampa has a Nigu Chodro, all this yoga posture. Did they they find this kind of experience and and realization, and then they just simply demonstrate, or does it have a link with the Buddha?
Yes, of course. Not only does it have a link, you know what I've been discovering so strongly, I've been learning so much by trying to teach these people, newer people, about these things.
Okay.
But one thing that really, really impressed me is that the great thing is, Buddha, he refused any kind of suggestion that he was omnipotent, all powerful, right? And not only that, but there's a sutra even in the Tengmen where Brahma, the god Brahma, right, Sangpa, he tells some yogi who goes there to his heaven to ask him, like, how did he create the world? Because this yogi thinks, well, you made the world. What was there before you made it? And how did you do it? And how does it work? Because I want to understand. So then Brahma tells him, after first Brahma doesn't say anything, he just says, he brushes him off at first, kicks him out of the heaven. But then he follows him outside. And then he tells him the truth outside, but he didn't tell him in the heaven because the other gods are there, the lesser gods. And he doesn't want to say in front of the lesser gods because they'll be upset. So when he comes outside, he says, I didn't create it. I'm just the first person here. And I didn't really do it. And you go ask Buddha. If you want to understand how it works, go ask Buddha. So Buddha's omniscient, who knows everything, but he's not all powerful. That's really important. So therefore, take Tantra, the idea that Tantra, you can compress 3 incalculable aeons, right? Dangme, 3 incalculable aeons of lifetimes into one lifetime, or 3 or 7 or 16, right? If you keep your vows, and so if you do that, you compress in such a small thing. Why are you in a hurry? In other words, so the motive of Tantra for the Buddhists is to be able to be Buddha faster, because they want to be able to help others sooner. Right? The Bodhisattva idea of the Laksam, right? Of Messiah, I call it, sort of technical way, messianic resolution. I want to save them. And then, I have to be a Buddha to have the ability to do it properly. I can't do it without becoming Buddha. So then I rush to get Buddha, right? So here's the thing. In looking and comparing with the Hindu tantras, I realized I kept looking for, where's the Bodhisattva vow? Where's the Bodhicitta? Where's the Jangsem? Jangsem Dogpa, Jangsem Semkye Kawayo. In the Semkye Omare. And then I thought, well, of course, there's no Semkye. Because why? Because Krishna, Shiva, whoever it is, the monotheist Indian, they think they're all powerful. So Shiva is not saying, oh, I need more Shivas to help me out with the world. You know, the universe is so big, so many beings who are suffering. So to help them all, I need you all to become Shiva so we can work together. You know? So in one way, of course, and you know that thing in the Dodegan, I love that verse in Dodegan, that Maitreya says, Chamba says, we don't say there's one Buddha, we don't say there are many Buddhas. There's not many Buddhas, because in Dharmakaya, it's just one Dharmakaya, no differentiation. But we don't say there's one Buddha, because in Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, you know, Rupakaya, where each person gets to enjoy being one with the other one. So you can't say one or many, either one. But anyway, both of them, right? So I really love that. So every motive of what we're doing is bodhicitta. So then Tibet, you know, my sense of history now is this. Mahasiddhas, 84 Mahasiddhas, maybe 8,000 Mahasiddhas in India in the last few hundred years, you know. And since Chandrakirti, I think Chandrakirti's book, his Journal, is this time when Tantra became accessible in the big university, you know, Nalanda, Vikramashila, things, Atantapuri. So then those are the rules of how to understand for the monk, you know, for the educated bhikshus, you know, gelons. And some of them, like Naropa, they left the monastery, but a lot of them stayed in the monastery, you know, and they used the Yishi Chagya, you know, Yegya. They use the Yegya, the visualize, the magical, not the physical one, right? Not the Legya. So my point, therefore, is that those siddhas saw that India was going to have a hard time, because Kajis were going to come, and maybe they were so enlightened they could know that Europeans are going to come. You know, and because India had become more peaceful, actually, and more friendly, and not so strongly militarized. When you have more Dharma, then you're less militarized. You know, it weakens the military. They saw that. So I think they all reincarnated in Tibet, a lot of them. Right? You know, many Tulkus, their former life in India was one or another Mahasiddha, right? And then they were able to, Tibet didn't just keep, you know, Triyana Buddhism the way it was in India, but it moved it further. In other words, the Nalanda curriculum, Vikramashila curriculum, many Bengali great monasteries under Pala dynasty, Atisha, you know, they brought all of this stuff to Tibet, and then they made even more. So Naropa and Tilopa, they were teaching Marpa, right? I mean, right away. And Maitripa is going to Tibet, and all those great yogis are going. And I think they're reborn there too, because they're going to keep developing the Dharma and the practices so it can help the world, saving it during the time of different invasion. So then you have 1,000 years where India, or 900 years where India is really subdued under more backward culture. Both the Kaji and then English and German, and not German. That's why the Germans are nicer. They didn't go there. French, Portuguese, Dutch, English. The Germans were happier in Europe, you know. Schlagzana and beer, drinking beer, you know, fighting with each other, you know. So they didn't bother to try to go conquer everywhere, you know. Like British had a horrible life, terrible food, terrible bread, bad weather. They got on the boats and went off to beat other people up, you know, get more spices from India, whatever, you know. So the point is that Tibet. So then the way in Tibet of these, like even Dzogchen and Chagcha Chimbo and Naro Chudu, Nigomo Chudu, these things were sort of more advanced. And the poor Tibetans didn't even know what hit them. They were big conquerors too. Like, you know, they were beating up everybody all around them. The only good thing for their neighbors was they liked living at the high altitude, so they didn't colonize. You know what I mean? They didn't spread out like that because they liked being up in a high altitude. Except on the Silk Route, you know, in Central Asia for a while, you know, Dunhuang and these places, you know, on the way to China to make money. They stayed down there, but otherwise they mostly went home.
No.
After they robbed people and so forth, because they were fighters. And then they just switched much faster, and they became peaceful. Omani Peme home. It's not really nice to be a fighter. By the end, they were like, "Who's a fighter?" Very few people. Maybe some Doptos, but otherwise, there's some Dopto monks. But they were demilitarized, really, as a country. They can be proud of that, actually. And not only did Tibetans demilitarize, but they helped Mongolians demilitarize.
Yeah.
And that's like a miracle. Genghis Khan, they were the toughest guys, most Rambo guys you can even think of, the Mongolians. They beat the crap out of everybody, from China to Europe and Persia and everywhere, and Baghdad, they really wasted everybody. And then after a while, they got the Tibetan lifestyle, the inner conquest, self-conquest, instead of conquering other people and killing people. So that's Tibet's great achievement. And that's the Dharma continuing a little bit sort of hidden away in Central Asia, while, all this colonialism and fighting and invasions and empires are being made, which in a way you could say brings the planet together, kind of, It has a very negative genocide thing on a lot of people, but it makes a connected single planet, in preparation for the eventual Shambhala sort of idea, Maybe good era we have. So that's why the motive, but the key motive is Bodhisattva motive.
Okay.
Without Bodhisattva, and that's the weakness of Hindu Tantra, that guy who thinks we're just copying Hindus.
Yeah.
Because they don't have, or you can put it this way, classical Indian civilization up to the conquest by Muslim.
Okay.
But the classical one, the Buddhist part of it was where the Bodhisattva motive was. You know what I mean? Yeah. And even, the famous bhakti idea, bhakti, where they love Krishna, they sing Krishna, Jai Krishna, they go crazy over that. But, that was a huge change from the Vedas, because the old Vedas, although Indian people say we just do Vedas, but the old Vedas before Buddha, those gods were not lovable.
No, sir.
They were scary. You had to go make sacrifice.
Okay.
Even marche. Because otherwise they would hassle you, and you thought that. And one interesting thing that you'll be very interested. The notion of karma.
Yes, sir.
Karma. Buddha took karma away from the Vedic ritual, because in the Vedic period, karma meant action in a ritual.
Yes, sir.
Because they thought the gods controlled what happened to you. So therefore, when you did how did you determine having a good future? You had to make offering to the gods, and then the gods would control what happened to you. You follow me?
Yeah, I understand.
So that meant, it still means, right? Le shi. That means four kinds of ritual, right?
No.
Shi, Je, Wang, Dak, we'd still have. But that was the only meaning in the Vedic time. And then Buddha made it, no, it's not the gods, it's how you behave. It's how you think. It's what you say. The Leki Lam.
Leki Lam.
Lam Chu.
No.
And so that was huge change. And once that changed, then it was up to the individual to behave better, to have a good outcome, rather than just ask the gods to help. You know what I mean? So that was then the greatness of classical India. Was the fact that the Buddhist part was the sort of more democratic, the more compassion-oriented. All of that aspect was there. Right? Also smoothing out the caste system, making more equality.
No, sir.
And making the caste system less rigid.
No.
So then when they moved to Tibet, they started with a bunch of wild nomads, very brave and courageous, powerful people, but not very many of them. And all these Mahasiddhas took rebirth there, and they started getting them to realize that you could use that bravery to confront your inner demons was more important than conquering some Chinese or some Turkish people, Mongolians or Indians, Nepalis, And so they completely changed the culture, And then therefore now what Tibet brings back to India and brings back to and shares with the whole world, even after Tibet also gets beat up by some backward people, communists, and Mongolia too, by Russians, and is more better even than what was in India in 10th century, at the time of when they burned Nalanda in the 12th century. Did you follow me?
Yeah, I'm following.
But then if you look at Hindu culture now, His Holiness, he now has a fourth aim in life. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yes. Okay.
You heard about that, right? Which is bringing back India's full culture. But he doesn't say Buddhist. He just says Sanskrit Buddhism.
Yeah, he said that. Yeah, I remember that.
Your own Nangirikpa.
No.
And because really it isn't that it's some other religion. It's the full scope of classical Indian civilization.
No.
Because the Buddhists had the big universities, and they could touch the talent of people in all classes, not just the Brahmins. Do you know what I mean? Not just the upper classes, and even women for a while. Although the Indians, they all still, they controlling the women. They don't like really women being pictured. Buddha knew they wouldn't like it, so he was slow about it. You know what I mean? Because women were the slaves, basically, of ancient India. They still are worldwide, really. And so the importance of the compassion motive of Kalachakra, and Krishna himself has like nirvana powers, like emanation powers. Like some of the Bhagavad-Gita, he multiplies to go chase more cowgirls. But everybody loves Krishna, and he's loving. I'm not like the Vedic gods. He's like nice, but he's loving and lovable, and so you can love Krishna. But he doesn't ask you to be another Krishna and help him with the cowgirls. He's taking care of them all. Do you know what I mean? So there's no motive really to use Tantra to accelerate evolution to being a being that wants to help everybody in an effective way, like a Buddha does. Do you know what I mean? Because of the theory that Krishna is omnipotent, Vishnu or Shiva, that they're already doing everything that can be done, and there's no need for more of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Whereas we have it wide open, where more Buddhas, the better,
No.
Right? So then we have a motive to quickly become one, so we can really be helpful to the beings,
Okay.
So that is, so I'm asking all my Hindu friends and scholars, please find me something in your Hindu sources that's like a bodhisattva vow. And it's so far zero. And the Bhagavad-Gita. Did you ever read the Bhagavad-Gita?
No, I don't think so.
So that's the big Hindu like Bible, Bhagavad-Gita. And but in Bhagavad-Gita, Arjuna, the hero, who's a big warrior, very tough fighter, a great archer, like fantastic. But he wants to not fight in that battle, famous battle, because there are people on the other side are his relatives and his teacher, and so on. So he says to Krishna, I don't want to fight. That's stupid. We can make a deal. We can negotiate. We can dialogue. And Krishna says, no, you have to fight. You're a warrior. Warriors fight. That's what they do. That's the Dharma. And the Dharma for them means duty. You just have to follow the old culture. Okay. So Buddha, when his father tried to arrest him when he wanted to leave and not be king, which was warrior job. Yeah. And so he just ran away. So that created an openness in India's society. And then slowly the Buddha unloaded, the different Buddhists unloaded more and more methods to transform the inner mind. And they had Tantra from Buddha's time, but they didn't try to use it when people were still more violent and crazy. They they didn't, remember he kept Mahayana secret even 400 years. He doesn't want Mahayana published for 400 years until Nagarjuna comes, right? He said, Buddha said. So because people couldn't take it, if they thought non-duality, then they just behave a stupid way they did before and say it's all nirvana. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So they had to get some Ngenjung.
No,
So
no.
Buddha was so skillful to mature the namamimba, mature the people bit by bit, making them more peaceful and less effective militarily.
No.
But and nobody has noticed this because the modern people stupidly think that the greatness of a society is how vicious you are, how many A-bombs you have. Do you know what I mean? They don't think that your greatness of a society is how gentle you are, how peaceful.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, yes.
So the Tibetans, I think young Tibetans tend to blame Buddhism for making them militarily weak. And then China was able to conquer them, and England before that, briefly, but mostly, of course, China. And Mongolians too. The young Mongolians have huge statue of Genghis Khan by there. Yes, they really like, but they have a bigger one of Buddha, but they kind of really like Genghis more. Then they could attack, they could control Russia again, they could whatever, But on the other hand, if you look at the current world situation, nobody wins any wars anymore.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Temporarily they do, but they never win because the people then people will do terrorism sooner or later, They can't really, the theory of war is that you conquer people to get them to work for you.
No, yeah.
But nowadays, the way the weapons are, you don't conquer anybody, you destroy their whole country.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like someone like Assad in Syria, he's still the owner of Syria, but he's destroyed his property.
Yes.
And his people are all completely wrecked. So what's the use of being a pile of dust, rubble and dead bodies? It's useless. And, U.S. couldn't manage in Iraq, Vietnam, Russia couldn't manage Afghanistan, U.S. couldn't manage Afghanistan. In other words, Israelis, how are they going to conquer 1.5 billion Muslims? The little Israel. At the moment, it looks great. We have a wall. We're tough. We can go bomb them anytime. But eventually, people won't support that. Outside people will not support them. And so by acting vicious like that, they're in the wrong century. And China, similarly, long-term, Tibet, Uyghurs, Mongolians, they're not going to manage. They're not going to conquer Japan. They're not going to conquer South Korea. They're not going to even conquer Taiwan without serious nuclear fight, and that would be the end of them.
Yeah, true.
There's a book somebody just published called 2034.
Okay.
In which China develops a computer weapon that cripples a battleship. They send a computer thing where then the communication on the big battleship doesn't work. Okay. So they can't even fire their guns, like on a destroyer or something. And then they sink a bunch of ships, American ships. Then they invade Taiwan. But the movie ends, but the book ends, the Americans then can't fight them on the ships. So then the American president, in order to show he do something, he dropped some nuclear weapons on Chinese cities. Then Chinese dropped some nuclear weapon on American cities. And then some other powers intervene and stop the whole thing. Luckily, in the book. It's a very exciting book, though.
Okay.
But you can see that easily happening. And that who wins? Nobody wins such a thing. You know what I'm saying? Yes. It won't happen. I'm sure it will not happen. I'm certain personally, but nobody will win it. So therefore, they somehow subconsciously know that.
No.
And then the Chinese guy who cooked up the scheme, he gets executed by the rest of the Politburo. They pretend he was just crazy and he invaded Taiwan. We didn't want to do that. The other ones. They lost Shanghai, 30 million people, in one nuclear attack. Because, of course, the regular redneck American is not going to accept having his fleet sunk. Do you know what I mean? China can say, oh, America's a declining power. Who cares? Yeah, but they'll blast them before they go. A bunch of crazy people.
Yeah.
So the point is, my point is that we're now at a time on the planet when the achievement of Tibet and Mongolia, and in a way ancient northern India, Buddhist India, of not defending themselves in a certain way, or not, living in a certain way, but not putting all their effort into weapons, which was bad for them in the earlier period. But now it's a skill. You can be happy without conquering. It's like lojong, national lojong. So then they can teach the crazy Americans, the Russians, Chinese, they can teach them national lojong.
National lojong. That sounds great.
So we know, because we have to do that. Everyone has to learn to use their courage to not attack, to not retaliate. Like if one side shot off nuclear missiles at the other side, the other one cannot retaliate. What's the use? It's not going to bring their city back. And then the fallout will destroy the whole atmosphere. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So peace as a skill, peace as an achievement is what you guys can claim that you did historically as a nation. Because people don't realize that Tibetans were ferocious conquerors before that, like Rambo. Red and Rambo. Some dead end. Seriously. And those were the days when you had to have a sword or a spear. You couldn't just press a button and send a drone.
Yes, true.
You know what I mean? You're a little wimpy guy, like press a button and blow up someplace. You had to go with your own strong arm.
Yes.
Good. So it took more guts. Anyway, whatever. So anyway, I'm sorry, that's a long story, but all I meant to say was, I really was surprised that you cannot, that of course, therefore they do have Tantra, like the Hindus, but the Tantra is just a meditation enhancement.
Okay.
So chakras and things, they're not trying, they want to go and be with Shiva or with Krishna or something, but they don't want to be Shiva.
Okay.
Because he doesn't want them to be, because he's omnipotent, so he doesn't need anybody else. Whereas Buddha likes, he likes Kalu Rinpoche to be Buddha. He likes everybody to be Buddha, but unfortunately, it takes time.
Yes.
Right.
So I got an answer in general, but at the same time, so you're saying that the yoga demonstration that is done by Niguma is spontaneously dedicated for the individuals. Yeah,
it's spontaneously what?
The yoga method is spontaneously created by Niguma. Am I right or wrong?
Oh, yeah. Well, yes and no. I think that Niguma and Naropa, they are being taught by enlightened siddhas like Tilopa and company. And those enlightened siddhas go back unbroken, Saraha, etc., and to Shakyamuni himself. Shakyamuni, I think, taught Indrabhuti, Vedikuya Samaja, and he taught Chakrasamvara to Shiva himself, actually. And he and Uma as some partners, I think Uma helped a lot. And so there always was this inner method of overcoming, hatred and lust, greed and hatred which is powerful and unconscious. And Tantra is like goes in the unconscious and gets those energies and uses them, right? In a positive way, instead of being imprisoned by them, tortured by them, like an ordinary person. And that's it. That went along with Buddha's own enlightenment, I believe. But then it couldn't be released in general in India until Indian people were more tolerant and more easygoing. It took 1,000 years, really, you could say, from Buddha's time, where it was then safe to have a lot of people knowing Tantra. And especially the Pradipodhyotana, the eternal cell of Chandrakirti, it explains to highly educated, like Geshe type scholars, how to go deeper than just with the Lutsem Rakpa, understanding emptiness, or Dagme Pa, Dagme Ni La Sopa, and Tongli Ning Jin Bojen La Sopa. but to go deeper than just Lusem Ragpa into Lusem Chawa and Shinto Chawa, herself. And so that's always been Buddha's medicine, I think, at the deepest level. But you can only release it when people are ready for it. Otherwise, so much corruption can take place. Somebody says, "Well, now I'm gonna rape everybody because I'm a Bodhisattva," you know.
Yeah, true.
So now I'm gonna just everybody's my consort, you know. And then that's harmful, because then they don't even understand simple Buddhist self-control. You know?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I understand.
So that's what I think, anyway.
Okay.
But the idea of I've got to be a Buddha to help beings for sure.
Yes.
You know, to be able to really help them, and I have to hurry up because they're suffering.
Yes.
I think that motive is a key motive for everyone. So when Dalai Lama gives the Kala Chakra, for example, did you attend one in India?
Yes, I attended
right?
several times.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you remember he always says, "Oh, probably most of you can't even practice this Kala Chakra. I'm not even really properly qualified to give the meditation. So we just do it as a good omen for blessing. Maybe one or two people can do something. I hope so." He says, "But the real thing you can use, I trick you." He says, "You came and I did preliminary teaching, Shantideva, you know, Junjuk or whatever it is. And that you can really use."
Yes.
But you wouldn't have come for that all the way from Amdo, but you came because Kala Chakra. But you can't really use Kala Chakra except as blessing. But you can use that preliminary teaching really well."
Yes,
and then, you know, I love that. I do like that when he does that.
I remember that because there was in Bodhigaya he gave Kala Chakra empowerment, and also in Siliguri in 1995, 1996, around that time, he also gave one Kala Chakra empowerment as well. So he was always saying this, giving lots of teaching. It didn't make any sense because, even when I was little, my imagination was, receive empowerment and then go back home.
Right. That's
and
right.
then slowly, as you grow older, then I understood, what His Holiness was trying to do.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so good, really it's so good. So this, anyway, I'm hoping with the Vajra Yoga that we can create a new sort of idea about the Guru showing resilience and flexibility of identity.
Yes.
Understanding Dagme, meaning resilience of identity.
Yes.
So in the mandala and in the ritual, then Guru can be, Lying Arjel, can be Buddha deity.
No.
And but then when they're on the street, they can be relaxed with a t-shirt, and they don't have to blow a horn when they walk in the room.
Yes.
No, because that's better for people than because I was thinking this Lying Arjel, we say, Lying Arjel.
No.
Right?
No.
It's the key thing you have to have that's the outcome. Nangshen tumo maimbe Nangshen agora tumo magora ikedem ki zawatirwa and chi barchi ke sum the three bodies of Buddha. So my point is, when you say to Westerner deity pride, and Westerner unconsciously has idea of omnipotent deity, creator God.
Yeah.
And then they think, what's the Buddhists having now? They're having deity. So whereas it's a Buddha, Bodhisattva is a Buddha form.
Yeah.
But the body form is the form of a deity of Tushita,
Yes.
desire realm heaven, not even Sukham, but the Dukam Gita. Then that's not creator deity, that's a party animal. Tushita. And it has, it's not even top, Paranirmita Vasavartan. I don't know why I remember the Sanskrit word in my old days. Paranirmita Vasavartan or Nirmanarati. The two high desire realm, Dukham, heaven. They're so, those two kinds of deities, they don't even have sex anymore. They're so satisfied. Yes. All they do is they just have a fantasy, you know what I mean? Or the top one just looks at other people's fantasies, like looking through a peephole in some weird brothel or something. and then in Sukham, why is it called Sangha? Because they don't even have the normal male or female bodies anymore.
No.
But in our Buddhist text, it just says there's no women.
Yeah.
There's no women, there's no men.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? All the beings are bigendered, you could say. Yes. But they never say that. Because a bunch of male chauvinists writing the books, they can't imagine the idea of bigendered, right?
Okay.
Right? Like a male person, Jansem Karmar, Marva Karmar, and a male person, Kyoga has also marble, the red one, right? And the navel chakra, have the red drop, white drop and red drop, right? So we all have female side, right? So in Sugam, we don't have to have a date because we're having sex with ourselves. That's why we're called Sangha, not because there's no women, but because there's no gender. I only realized that recently. Because they don't write that in Abhidharma. They don't think about that because they're all men. And even, they call Chansem Marbo, they call it menstrual blood. Or the translators.
Okay.
Did you know that?
I've seen some word like that.
Well, they say chak, just blood,
Okay.
And then some people say, well, that must be menstrual blood. Chansem Marbo.
Chansem Marbo.
Right? But it's not menstrual blood because menstrual blood is when it's no longer fertile.
Okay.
It drains out from the womb. But, the lining of the uterus, it drains out after the egg is no longer fertile. So the female thing is actually the fertility, super subtle fertility hormone. Like the male thing, the white semen, a lot of semen is just mucus. But the Jansem has to be the subtle fertility that makes the sperm fertile, right? If somebody has an ejaculation and there's some sperm lying on the street or in a rubber, it's no longer Jansem form, right? Because the fertility part, the subtle brain essence of the fertility is gone. I think. Nobody's really ever unpacked all of that stuff.
Unpack. Okay.
Really? But we're going to get to it. Well, that's the weird Kala Chakra thing where the red and white go up the central channel, like it stacks. Do you know what I mean? So they don't do Gulu like in Demchokan. I'm still trying to, I don't fully understand that, but you have this stack of red and white, 21,600 red and white drops go up the central channel, from crown to here. So that's both male and female in the one called Chakra deity. Even Doji Shuk, Vajravega, he's a male and female element both inside their body. Anyway, never mind. That's but I know if you notice, even in Tantric commentary, nobody seems to know what the woman yogini is all about.
Okay.
Right? They think the woman is just there for the male to get Buddhahood. Really? She's just hanging in there, offering her thing, so the male can get excited. But it's a little more complicated. They themselves have central channel thing too. They have central channel they can do.
Yes.
But actually, apparently, Jay Rinpoche in his Rinpoche Nyugu, he has a book called Rinpoche Nyugu, which is the Kane, the Sawantuvi Kane Jawa, the commentary on the difficult points of Gui Samaj. And in there, he has some mantra by the female, where the usual mantra, it comes from Hevajra actually.
Okay.
So I couldn't find it in the original Hevajra that I looked for, but anyway, he quotes Hevajra,
Yeah.
And there's a thing where female is thanking the male, for giving her the four blisses.
Okay.
The gawashi.
Kawashi.
She's thanking the lingam, the thing, the male thing.
Okay.
And then she puts that right next to the male, where he's thanking her for the chunjung,
No.
the female organ.
Yeah.
And he said that's where he helped him get the four blisses. So he shows female has the same kind of mantra.
No.
And therefore female has same four blisses. So they can do it just as well as male. And he proves that in that thing. But it's not, he has to dig around, hey Vajra. It's not made explicit in Gurya Samaja's whole literature. They're so proud of how everything is explicit in Gurya Samaja, but it isn't about the women's yogi. It's not.
Yeah, true. In the beginning, when I came to the West, I had a lot of struggle with that, because when I came to the West, people having this imagination of the tantric and the deities and it was so difficult to convince them that is wrong concept.
Yeah. But it's so great, though. It really is so great. But it's just, that's why it was kept secret, because, imagine your normal egotistical person,
yes,
who has the feeling of an absolute fixed self identity in there.
Yeah.
And then you tell that person, oh, now you have to have deity pride. And you have to think, I'm Buddha.
Yeah.
Or Dag Jinlep, I worship myself. And that person is going to go completely wacky.
Oh, yes. That's why I had to tell the individuals, when I have this online gatherings and even when I'm giving teaching, when I say to them, hey, it's not like holding into that thought of I am deity. It's rather more to do with holding, having the sense of clarity in mind. The continuity of the clarity in mind is the definition of Haingaja. If you have this similarity of the egoistic attitude of thinking, I am this God, and if you
I know.
Into your mind,
I think when we teach Westerners about that, when any of us do, we should always say Buddha deity.
Buddha deity, okay.
So that it's not like God, It's like Buddha deity in the sense of a very secure person who is in a secure space, like a Buddha land.
No.
In a mandala, pure for everything is perfect, so they can be very secure. And that's the only point of it. It's not that they can control everybody else or something.
No.
Like omnipotent gods, I think we should really do that. But anyway, you guys you're going to have a great time, I think, really.
Yeah.
Really fun. By the way, there's something you might be really interested in, which is I saw on YouTube by accident in the TED Talks. Have you ever watched any TED Talks?
No, I didn't.
You have it online there.
Okay.
It's called TED, TED.
Yes, I've seen TED Talks. Yes.
Yeah, so then there's some TEDx talks, which means it isn't the main one, but it's the other ones that they license from Scandinavia.
Okay.
And if you look up the word clitoracy or clitoris.
Okay.
You know that word in English? That's
Okay.
the female sex organ.
Okay, and then
it's in the front, in the lotus there. It's a little knob.
Okay.
There's a little knob there in the front in the lotus.
Okay.
But actually, that little knob is just the tip of it. It goes way back into the body.
Okay.
It's almost like a penis that's inside. It's quite long.
Okay.
It goes all the way almost to the gona. They have the gona inside, right?
Yes.
And there is one of 32 signs of Buddha is that penis is inside, Cell is it goes inside like a horse.
Yeah.
And of course, they say like tapo, like a male horse.
Yeah.
But because it's the lingam is there, the sema is there. But it's amazing if you understand. The female has this almost looks same length, same size.
Yeah.
and it goes up in the stomach like that, in the back almost to the egg where they make the eggs, in the ovaries, And it goes way back and very sensitive in the back, not just the front knob there.
Okay.
And it's a very funny talk by a Norwegian woman. It's called cliteracy, because there's an English word literacy.
Literacy,
you know how to read books, you're literate, so you have literacy. Clitoris. And when she gives the talk, you see the audience, and the men in the audience are like, huh? And she has someone come out on the stage dressed like a clitoris, like a costume.
Okay.
It's a very funny, actually, but she's making a point, that men have to learn how this works,
Okay.
Very important. Otherwise, they're not going to know what the women need, what they need. Anyway, I thought you'd find that very amusing. Okay, so listen, thank you so much, Rinpoche. I'd like to talk to you more too. So much fun.
Yes.
I have great hopes in your future teachings and wonderful deeds. Please come and see us, okay? As when you come to America and come to Tibet House, give your blessing to Menla, give your blessing and make it feel, especially Menla, you can feel it's like a home. You might have your own centers in the future, but initially you can feel it's like a home for you. Anytime. You don't have to teach it, but you could just come and do retreat. We've had a few lamas come and do retreats there. And we'd be happy to try to help you do that, for example, if you want to. Anytime.
New York, how far is it?
It's only 2 hours from New York. Well, maybe. I drive a little quickly on the highway. So German Autobahn. But if you drive normally, maybe 2.5,
Okay. Then that's not really far.
What?
That's not really far at all.
No, it's not very far at all. It's easy to come.
Okay.
Although to some wealthy New Yorkers, they come in helicopter. They're too lazy to sit in the car for 2 hours. But a few people, we've had someone do that. But most people are happy to just drive up. It's a nice drive up the river, up to Hudson Valley. And we're very lucky here. We have a lot of rain and very green. It's really nice.
Yes.
Not like California. I'm very frightened for California. The climate thing is coming on so strong. Just terrible. Really bad. We're trying to do in November, we're going to try to do an online conference about Tibet's environment. Melting glacier too fast.
No. And
the glacier is melting 5 times faster than it needs to melt, even with global warming, because of putting too many people up there. When you put a big city, and you have a lot of Chinese immigrants up there, then that creates a heat that changes the climate in that area. So by trying to make a big city in Shigatse, city in, of course, Lhasa, and then some, by doing that, then they're intensifying the overheating. And on top of that, kicking the nomads and the yaks off the land, and then they just mining and putting sheep and goats and making a desert. Oh, it's terrible. They're really wrecking the environment in Tibet.
I remember that some time ago also His Holiness emphasizing on the, how to say, Tibet as one of the climate issue that we all have to be aware of. That he was giving teaching also. I saw his Facebook teachings as well. It's time to time.
Yes, all the rivers come down. 2 billion people need those rivers, even in China. And if they melt the glacier, then we have like mass refugees and really terrible. Except the monsoon, then there'll be no water.
No, true.
Lotus. On that note. We'll get there. I think Greta is like Labab. She's a real oracle. Greta Thunberg.
Greta Thunberg. Wow, Sweden.
I think we should give her Tibetan costume, have a mirror with the Shri, and then send her to the UN and tell those corporations to cut it out. Really, she's like that. I think I really admire her. Wonderful. Okay, Rinpoche. So nice to talk to you.
No, no,
Yes. Yes, and we might make a podcast out of it, but I will check, make sure some minor thing we might edit a little bit,
Oh, okay.
show it to you so you approve. Okay, we won't show anything that's in any way embarrassing. Okay, and as usual, I talk too much because we really want you to talk more. But
no, it's fine.
I can cut some of it out.
Even for next time, you just let me know a few days before, and then I'm happy to come and to
Okay.
Actually, because the reason I like to listen to you, because actually I don't know whether you know that or not, but actually I watch many of your YouTube videos. When you engage with other teachers, when you.
Oh, good. You watch some?
Yes, I watch actually a lot, and especially when.
Good. I'm so glad. That's great. Did you know that guy? I think that Andrew Holochek.
Okay.
That did you see the weekends that we did on Bardo Tudor?
Not that one yet. I have to check, but I'm checking. I think most of it. I think it was in when you are sitting in the chair. I think it was in Menla Center, and then where you're giving talks about many other different topics. What is the Mahayana and what is Tantrayana and so on and so forth. So I was when I wash my dishes, because.
Good. I hope they you can have access to anything you want. There's hundreds of things on my website, and now we're making more things from Teachable. So I'd be very happy to have anything. I'm happy to have a conversation with you.
Because
as well as when you come and learn from you as well about Shangba. I really want
because when we. How do I say, when you want to learn something from the great traditional master, you have to do everything, preparation and all the ceremonial thing, right?
I'm just like a parrot, I read a book and then I just.
No, but I can ask questions very frequently to you, and then,
Sure, so anytime. Well, just anytime for informal conversation, just let me know. I'd be really happy, always happy to talk to you. Totally. Mm-hmm. I really enjoy it. And because I'm thinking that you're, and there's that guy, one of those Nyingma guys. What's his name? I forget his name. He went off and lived on the street in India.
Oh, okay.
Was that Mingyur Rinpoche or who was that? I don't know him very well, but one of the Nyingma guys.
I don't know.
Well, he went and he lived not Tsogni Rinpoche, but Mingyur, I think. And he just went out without his turban, and he just lived in a bus station in India and a railway station and wandered around to sort of feel like a really ordinary person and see how it felt like, Yeah. And I think so. That's maybe, I hope he's going in your direction of trying to be a real person, a normal person, as well as you don't want to give up being a Vajra Acharya, being a Vajra Dorje Loban, Dorje Lama, but you are a Lama. But then you have that flexibility of being both ways. So I think it creates a new generation, and it will be very important, I think. I hope so. So I'm so happy to know you. Anyway, I just like you. You're nice. You're fun. I occasionally, Dalai Lama, when he gives 5 precepts of Genyan, 4.5, So he allows me to have a glass of beer, one glass of wine. He doesn't mind.
Okay.
Not 5 beers, not 2 bottles.
I used to drink, but then I stopped.
Well, that's good. Well, you're a teacher, but he allows you to just have a little taste, like medicine.
Like medicine. Yeah. Okay.
Menchang, they call it. But it's very dangerous to do more. Absolutely. It's very addictive, very bad.
No.
But that's another topic. But the psychedelic thing is now coming back. Like mushrooms and some of the psychedelic things are coming back with the psychiatrists to help people who've been traumatized, like a vision quest thing. And I don't think that breaks the precept of non-intoxicant. No, it is kind of it creates a change in consciousness. But it's really visionary. It's not really like drinking,
Not it, no.
That those things, and they are very useful tools for people to have vision and to learn about how the mind works, actually, if properly administered by a teacher or by a psychiatrist or scientist. It's very interesting, actually.
No.
So I consider that different. But I don't do either. I said I have no time. But I did when I was younger, and it was very helpful. A lot of the people who came to study, originally they got a little bit crazed by some sort of psychedelic, not heroin or cocaine or any of those. Those are just stimulants. But LSD, psilocybin, those things, mescaline, the thing the native people use in the jungle. Ayahuasca was very interesting.
Yeah, I've seen some documentaries on that.
What's that?
I've seen some documentaries. People are trying to find some spiritual path by using a different substance. I've seen some.
Yeah, the people who it can be harmful if they use all the time, then they get very confused. But a few sessions where they open up their perception, and then they realize that their mind is so powerful, the way it controls how they perceive things, then they can go to work meditating or studying and learning, when they're not stoned, they try to learn how the mind works. It's a good door opening thing.
Oh, yes.
A little bit can be. So that's different. Anyway, okay, Rinpoche, I have a hard time leaving you.
I want to take a picture. I think I'm becoming your fan. So I want to take a picture.
Oh, okay. I don't know how to do that, but you're welcome. Very good. Very nice. Oh, good. I'm going to take one. Where's my phone? Okay, I'll take one too. You're taking a picture of the actual screen. Okay, I'm going to take one too. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah. Good idea.
Oh, no, I don't see your face.
Oh, there you are. That's really fun. Okay, I got it.
I cannot see your face right now. No.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Very good. That's really nice. Do you like that? You see this thing behind me here?
Yes.
Nice. I love it.
No,
This one. That's a tong drum, Oh, went wrong way. See that face?
No.
That's the Jamba in the Gandhan Podang in Debo.
No, sir.
Some friend of mine took a nice photo.
No.
That's a really fun one. So
I have actually, talking about Jamba, I have one Buddha statue. I have one Buddha Shakyamuni statue that is coming from the 7th century.
Wow.
Yes. And it was handcrafted by the Bishukarma.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes,
wow.
Yeah. And it was passed down by family
generation. By train, Jamba?
No, it was a Buddha Shakyamuni, like a size of this.
Oh, wow.
And it is the same, how do I say, same feature, because, when there's an artist who came from India, early days, their whole, way of crafting is different, right? So we have, it's passed down through my predecessor family generation, because my previous Kalu Rinpoche's father, he's a physician, and also he's a Tertun and Nyingma master as well.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So he had this from family generation. So I have it in my shrine, because when you're talking about this statue.
That's great. That's right. Well, today is Sagadawa, right?
No,
Sagadawa. Today is Sagadawa.
No.
Wonderful Sagadawa.
There's a story that, Jamba, Tanda Thasa, Chohan la Jamba Yorwa, Jamba Gumbo. The Buddha statue, the main one in the Potala. I mean, in the Chokhang temple.
Yes.
So there's a story that I don't know whether it's true or not, but the Bishukarma, he crafted 1,000 of a smaller statue as well. Oh. So this is among the one of the 1,000.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I don't know how he got it, but
that's wonderful, Rinpoche.
No,
really great.
Just wanted to tell you. I was just saying something came to my mind.
Let's stay there. Have a great day. Have a great evening. Give my best to Michael Kurtz.
I will.
That's great. Wonderful. See you soon. Okay?
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Thank you so much.